Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining us today for this Unify webinar on an introduction of Team Developer 6.1. I hope you get a good glimpse of what's available now with Team Developer 6.1 that has been released a few weeks ago. I'm your host and speaker, Martin Tietz, and I will guide you through this webinar today. You are welcome to post any questions that you might have. Please do that into the chat or into the question mark tool of WebEx. Thank you for that, and I will answer those towards the end of the webinar. So, a few introductory things about Unify. Unify is more than 30 years in the database and development industry. We have a number of industry-first databases like Data Server for Unix, Excel for Unix, SQL Base for DOS and Windows, SQL Windows, and Team Developer for the Windows world. Unify is not only databases and tools, the business you probably know the best. We also offer archiving solutions via our Access One division. We do offer e-discovery solutions via Dages. We offer Oracle Forms to Java migration and Lotus Notes to .NET migration. If you need any of this, please contact us, and we will help you to get in contact with the right people. Today, I'm going to give you an overview of Team Developer 6.1 and just a few highlight words about it. What we offer with 6.1 is like three major areas. One of them is this one here, fun and speed, fun to use, new high-speed IDE. The second area of new features and enhancements is the area of .NET integration. We do now offer .NET web services, providing as well as consuming. I will give you samples of that later, or demonstrations of that. DBPipe allows effortless deployment of applications, of .NET applications, meaning that you can deploy browser and desktop applications without any database client, if you like, which could be quite interesting. The third area of enhancement and new features in Team Developer 6.1 are the controls. We offer beautiful and rich new controls. They are all nicely designed and offer a full-featured API and a host of properties that you can set from the attribute inspector. So here's the overview of all these three functional areas that have been enhanced massively in 6.1. Let's talk a bit about the IDE itself, what's coming there or what's available there, I shall say, really, because probably some of you have already played with the new version, downloaded the test version, or downloaded the licensed version that you own. So enhancements to the IDE include color-coded source editor. So the source code looks colored, depending, strings have a different color than statements and such. You will see that in a minute as well. We get new outline tabs that allow for quick code navigation between areas of code in your application. A nice little thing is background text and group box caption displayed in the outline. Active coding assisting speed, resizable, and more. This should now work very well with very large applications. We have a new Attribute Inspector Messages tab that allows for quick message navigation and quickly adding code to controls that are on your screens. Quick default message navigation is included in the Attribute Inspector. You get new tools like the documentation tool and the Orphaned code detection tool. You get productivity enhancements like go-to definition and back Ctrl-G and Shift Ctrl-G, which is nice. And there's typing macros like var++ and var-. If you enter those in the IDE, then it will expand those lines to the full correct syntax automatically. And we have a new multi-step undo feature in the IDE as well. So you see quite a number of things in the new IDE. And here's how the source code looks when you code with the IDE. Strings are in red, SAL statements in blue, functions and such in black, the comments in green, and all of this is, of course, configurable to your needs, so you can design what color to use for all of these. The outline tabs, this is what you see here, is the several tabs at the top of the screenshot, where you can quickly navigate between high-level views of the outline to like window views, function views, or just a view of a single button, for example, like in this case. Background text and group box caption looks like this in the outline. Behind the object name, you get the object title or the object text content in curly braces, so you see what object this relates to. The active coding assistant has been completely rewritten to work very well with very large apps. The window is resizable. It also auto-adjusts the max content length. You see inherited class members, external .NET classes, and the list changes as you type. So it's a quite nice, good working experience now. The Attribute Inspector Messages tab that you see on the screenshot here, you see that there are messages. Some are in normal font, some are in bold font. Those in bold font mean there is code already available behind this message. So if you double click on this, you will be taken right to that code section in the outline, and you can edit it. If you double click on a non-bold entry, so a standard font entry there, then this message will be added to your code and you can start coding at that position. So that's a quite nice and handy usability feature. The documentation tool creates detailed HTML documentation from the descriptions and comments in your outline. You can customize the layouts via CSS style sheets. You can include, exclude libraries, and what you get is basically kind of a number of HTML pages that include all the things that I mentioned here. And you have a quite nice documentation available. The next tool is Orphaned code detection. This works for .NET applications, and running the Orphaned code detection tool gives you a list of objects that are not in use, and you can click on an object and it will go into the outline and select that object for you, and you can delete it there, or comment it. So maybe just try it before and then be cautious anyway. Productivity enhancements, you get that var++, var-, coding macros, which allow you to set code much quicker. The set variable equals variable +1 thing. Go to definition and back and multi-step undo. There's a number of debugging enhancements as well. You already see the screenshots on the right there. One important thing is .NET 4 XBAP debugging. So that hit us with 6.0, where we couldn't debug XBAP web applications, but that is now possible. Stack window for .NET apps, you see that on the right side with the orange title bar there. Enhanced messages window that includes the W-param and L-param values now for the message and the firing window name. And you get a new current execution line indicator. And you also have, if you stop at a break and you move around in the code, then you have that yellow arrow button in the toolbar now in the IDE, where you can quickly go to back to the position of the actual breakpoint. And you have hover over UDV examination. That's the the bottommost screenshots on the right side. In that screenshot, you cannot see the mouse actually, because somehow if you do a screenshot, then the mouse never gets caught on it. But actually, I'm hovering over the name of my UDV there, and then this window opens with the instance variables of this UDV and the values of it. So very nice debugging help there when you are in debug mode. And I will show you that actually very soon with this little demonstration here. So let's see my demos for the IDE. So let me open an application. the weather web service. So now let's have a look at the outline. For example, look into the function read weather, and there you see the colored outline. Source code, string literals in red, SAL statements in blue, comments in green, and as I said, you can configure this to your needs. Let's see how that looks in contents. In contents, here on that window, I have several instances of background texts, and you see the header of the background text you see in curly braces there. So you kind of can identify what that background text object stands for. And it's easier to associate if you move those around what it is for. The messages tab, I have the attribute inspector docked here. So I get the messages tab here. If I check, if I go to a data field and go to the messages tab, you see the messages that a data field supports. You can check SAM messages only, then you get only the SAM messages and not your user messages. So, and if I add something here, double click here, you see then it will be added into the code and you can start coding right there. Okay, let me open another application. And that's the debug one, user-defined variable, and I'll show you how to debug this. This application basically has a form window, doesn't do a lot, a push button where several values are being set. Actually, a UDV is filled with values, and let me set a breakpoint here, toggle, and then run this. If I click on initiate UDV now, it stops here at this breakpoint, and if I move on the variable name myUDV, you see that UDV instance variable debug window opening, and you see the values that have been assigned to all the instances of this UDV. And you can also go on to single values, and you'll get the micro help with the value of a simple value. If I go onto the UDV name, then I get that larger, UDV window. Okay, and you see here, if I go if I scroll around in my code now, and I want to go back to the breakpoint, I just can click this yellow arrow button here, and I'm back at the breakpoint, and now I can click the green one to continue my processing. So here's the UDV debug and a quick look at the new IDE. Let's go back to the presentation. Let's talk a bit about the .NET features of TD 6.1, the powerful .NET integration. What you get is consuming web services from .NET applications. Actually, you can use these consuming web services for .NET from Win32 applications as well, because Win32 allows you to call .NET things. So you can use the same .NET technology for Win32 and .NET. You can provide .NET Web Services, which is a really powerful new feature of Team Developer 6.1. You get local .NET exception handling. I do have a nice example for that as well. .NET Explorer enhancements, we do offer several. We have DBPipe extended to WPF desktop apps. We support .NET connection strings. There's a new method called SQLConnect.NET that connects to any database where you know the connection string basically and is in reach for you. .NET Sybase support, so fully tested Sybase support. We can compile to .NET 4 now if you need that. You can set the application namespace in the build settings now. And several XAML enhancements. Resource dictionaries allow you to, for example, to create applications that offer runtime language switching. The brush editor allows to create brushes, so easy looks of controls, for example, for backgrounds of controls or for button styles, or complete styles, which are a complete definition of an object, where brush is just the foreground and background color, including colors, for example. We'll see that in an example. When you consume web services from .NET, you have a new .NET Web Services wizard. This wizard creates a .NET Web Service interop DLL, so you end up with a .NET class DLL, and this DLL is automatically included in the open application. And to execute the web service, you just do something like the code below here, myweather.getWeather. GetWeather is the web service operation that team developer grabbed from the provided whistle of the web service, and you just provide, like you're used to, for example, data fields there, df city, df country, and things like that. So calling a web service is just really a matter of calling a .NET method, and that's really very easy and powerful for you. Providing .NET Web Services. What that allows you is to call Team Developer Business Logic from any platform. You can call Team Developer Business Logic from ASP.NET web applications, so HTML applications basically, from Java apps, from Android apps, and from iOS apps. So if you deploy your business logic via .NET Web Services, then all these platforms can access your business logic. If you do provide .NET Web Services, then your outline kind of looks like this. What you have is a new class, which is a web service class. And a web service class can have multiple functions. Functions are for internal processing only. Those are not exposed to the client, are not published. And operations are actually the things that are being published. And you can, web service can inherit from other functional classes, so you can inherit your existing functional classes to web services, and you can deploy them using Internet Information Service, which is included in every copy of Windows, basically. You get local .NET exception handling. We have a new statement when exception for local .NET exception handling. Another statement is the rethrow. With rethrow, you can push the exception to the next level or to a global level using rethrow global. So you can really have a multi-level .NET exception handling from the lowest level in your code up to global .NET exception handling, SAMNet exception, that is in global application messages. And I have a sample for that as well. Support for Sybase and .NET apps, and the new .NET database connection string support SQLconnect.net, which connects basically to any .NET data provider you have on your machine, and you know where you need to provide a connection string in .NET format. DBPipe. DBPipe is this technology that we used to have with 6.0 for browser clients, so WPF browser applications. Browser applications could access a central database via this new DBPipe technology. And for that, the browser client would need a database client. It would talk via our DBPipe to the central IIS side, and from there, all database access would be done and the return sent to the client. We have extended that now so that you can now use that from .NET desktop clients as well. So basically, .NET desktops can use DBPipe to send and receive SQL without a local database client. This works for SQL-Base, Oracle, and Sybase. So if you want to access from your .NET desktop application and central Oracle database, you don't want to pay for the Oracle client licenses, and you don't want to go through the deployment hassles of maybe deploying 1,000 Oracle clients to your users. You can do that with just DBPipe, which is included in the team developer deployment, and you just have to set the right IP addresses that it needs to access. Where I need to tell you You need to tell where basically the DBPipe server is hosted. Build settings. So compile to the .NET 2/3.5, which we had before, and now also .NET 4. You can set your custom app namespace if you like, and you see those options in the screenshot to the right. XAML made easy. You can do things like runtime language switching and also runtime string resource management. So there are several methods that allow you to switch the language and that also allow you to look up certain string resources during runtime, and that might be for other things like error messages or whatever that you don't want to have in your code. And that doesn't necessarily mean this is for internationalization. We have a new visual brush editor that allows you to do some XAML without XAML coding, which is really nice. And you can assign XAML styles to team developer objects via the attribute inspector. So, resource dictionaries. In the resources section of the outline, you have a new item there now, which is called resource dictionaries. And as you can see there, there's like, in this screenshot, there's like 3 resource dictionaries in separate languages. There's English, German, and French. And you basically load all these resource dictionaries in this section. And then you have that new API SAL dictionary promote. And using that API, you can move, basically, you can change the priority of the languages. So basically, if you have English first in this list, then it would show, the app would show up as English. If you want to have switch during runtime from English to German, you would promote the German.xaml file, and all new windows that will be created from then will use German language. And the other one that is SAL dictionary lookup string that you can use, for example, to look up error messages of your application that you do not want to have in your source code. XAML brushes and brush editor. This allows you to create brushes that have several gradient stops in there. So nice looking gradients like with this push button that you see on the bottom right, from blue to yellow to red, whatever you want to design there. And you basically give that XAML a name, and then in the attribute inspector for an object, you have a background brush and text brush property where you can set the brush, the XAML brush, and then it will be displayed using the new brush with all the gradients that you have defined there. XAML style. For objects, you can also see that they have a new property, XAML style. And the XAML style needs to be, of course, in one of these XAML resources that you included with your application. And those allow you to completely redesign the look of controls. For example, that CMeter control on top is being replaced with a speedometer on the bottom, which is totally rewritten in XAML what the CMeter does. This is kind of for the advanced user here. So let's go to the 6.1.NET demonstration. Let me open Team Developer again. Let's use the weather app again. That is consuming web services. And what you do is when you consume web services, the first thing you do is you go to Tools, Web Services, provide the URL of a WSDL file, click Next, and then you basically write. Then the system basically creates a DLL for you. That includes the classes to call that web service. I've done that already. If you look into that outline, you see a simple file include globalweather.axl, though I should have a globalweather.dll in that directory. That will be that I use to call this web service. In this window, I have a button called pbweather, and when I click that, then I just call that web service. So the instance variable myweather with the method getWeather, I pass a city and a country, and then what I get from this web service is an XML string that is kind of a very special web service. So it returns an XML string, as a parameter, but that's how this one works. So let's have a look at this guy here. So now it's compiling the .NET application, running that in debug mode, really. So this web service offers kind of two operations. One is an operation to get the available cities for a country. So I can put in here like United States. I leave that and press the cities button, and now it goes and retrieves all the cities available for weather information in the United States. And you see that's quite a lot, and that came through a web service now. And now I do select a city/airport here, and then I do another operation which is invoking the weather web service, and now this did return this XML string here, and I used the .NET system.xml assembly to extract the values from that XML string and put those in the data fields to the right. So you see Dallas-Fort Worth now is 10:53 a.m. Wind at 10 miles per hour, mostly cloudy, 26 degrees Celsius or 69 Fahrenheit. So this is what the web service provides, and it's really easy to call this. Here's the WSDL URL, and that really brings me, the WSDL URL really brings me to the next web service that I want to show you, which is my web service. Is that in this list here yet? No. Let me open this other example. .NET web service, WS, my web service. So this is now a web service that I have written, which is providing web services now. Go into global declarations, class definitions, web service class, and you see you have an item for functions and one for operations. I did write a function just to show you what this is meant for. In that function, I'm just setting the database access variables. So basically what I'm doing in that operation, my friends first set internal database variables by calling that internal function, and that function internal processing nobody will be able to access from the outside via a web service. And then I'm doing a connect to the database, retrieve the data. So I'm basically selecting last names from the contact table in the Island database and returning the right result set. And I do have a parameter which is as last name, and you see that goes into the SQL statement actually as a like condition. The web service returns a string of friends, and we also have local variables here. So if you look at the web service, it basically connects, then it retrieves all the friends with that, where like as last name is true, disconnects and return as friends to the caller then. Now I can go ahead and build that. I did that before. And now I deploy that to my IIS. Now this is .NET Web Service, WS. So this one has been sort this by date. This .asmx file is important, which is kind of the ASP.NET handler for all this, which does the magic for you that you will see soon. And the web service itself is my web service with parameter.dll. I get to copy both of these files now into my IIS directory. I do have a directory www web services friends in there, and I paste those files into here. And the DLL file actually doesn't need to go into this directory, but needs to go into the bin directory. So that's important to know. Overwrite this one, yes, please. So I overwrote the existing files there. So here you see the ASMX handler, and then you have a file called web.config, which is pretty important. Let me open that with Notepad++ here. And this file has 3 lines in there are those which are very important for you, which is keys that are SQL-based, TD installation there, TD SQL INI files. So the web service finds all the SQL-based files, the TD files, and the SQL INI file it shall use. Okay, and now ASP.NET Web Services really have a nice feature that allow you to test web services via Internet Explorer or probably via any browser. I have the links in my Internet Explorer here, and this my web service here is the thing that I just did copy over. So this my friend's web service actually has an input parameter of s last name that you can see here. So, and I can pass, for example, here s%, so I get back all my contacts with an s, starting with s. If I execute that, you see it worked quite nicely. It returns a string with all my contact names starting with s, starting a last name with s. So this is the web service that I did write and can now test using Internet Explorer, really. Then let's look at another web service, which is the Servers Exxon test. This one provides a number of operations. It returns the same thing that you pass in. For example, you pass in a bool and it returns a bool. You pass in a bin, it returns a bin. It pass in a datetime, it returns a datetime, and so on. And this has been coded and deployed on my IIS machine here. And now I can go again here into the Internet Explorer, and I can test. It lists all the operations of this web service. And I can test the simple ones here. So I can pass a bool here. And what it does is it really returns what I did pass in. So it returns what I did pass in. That works. In-out string is another simple data type. Let's choose this one. Call. And it returns the same string. So this is just a little application a little web service that returns data types, and you can do them data type testing with that. Now let me open an app that actually contains the consumer here, and you can see that the same thing. Now this is a web service client application that calls a deployed team developer.NET web service provider. So let's have a look here. What I need to do here is to include the AXL file for the web service, this guy here, and then this is the application, and basically if you click those buttons, then it will call the web service and return and show what return value you get. So let's do this. So for a Boolean, now Boolean here is checked, so true, and this one will return true. That's what's coming back from the web service. Date time, number, string, binary, so you can send around images if you like. Now I clear the fields and I invoke using a UDV, and you see it also returns the UDV values. The UDV includes all those values here that are shown. So another little example, which is actually also part of the TD6.1 samples that you get when you install TD6.1. So the last one was showing the .NET Web Service Provider and .NET Web Service Consumer. Now another one is the .NET exception handling that I shall show you on the .NET side. I'm showing you the source code for this one. It's also quite a simple application. There's two push buttons, and both show the .NET exception handling a little bit different, everyone. So on this one here, we have a when exception handling in the, let's say, top level of the source, and then we have a if b bools expression, and then at the next level we have another when exception statement there. And when an exception happens, then I assign a string, an error message to a string variable. I call sal get last exception to get the .NET exception message really. And then I do open a message box telling, a combination of the error string and the .NET exception that I get, and open that message box. So if now at the second level here at the if b bool, if there happens an exception, and I did program exception here, set enum equals 10 divided by 0, this will trigger an exception because divisions by 0 are not allowed. Then it should actually first execute this when exception code here. So you first see this message box coming up with this string and the .NET exception error. And then you see we have rethrow here, so it should go up to the next level, which is this level here. And then there will be another message box coming up with just text. And when that is done, no more messages will come because there's no rethrow at this level. So let's run this. So local exception handling, exception in XAML click of pb1 if b bool. So this is this level here where it's coming now. And now if I click OK, then it should execute the rethrow, and we should get this string here. Let's see if that happens. And you see now we get an exception in XAML click of pb1. Sorry about that German .NET message here, but as I'm using a German machine, that .NET message text comes through in German, trying to divide by 0. And the other one actually, let's look at the code first, does it a bit different. When exception, it only has one level of indentation and when exception. And what I do here when an exception happens is I do a rethrow global after I did process and show a message. So when I do rethrow global, then you see application actions on .NET exception, I do open a global .NET exception error box. And if I try that again, so you have really multi-level .NET exception handling now. So first it's at the button level, and now it's the, oh no, I did click the wrong button, sorry. So this one is at the button level, click of pb2, and this one is the global one. Yeah, here it is, the .NET global exception. Okay, so this is exception handling, which allows you to have, exception handling at every level of your application. Let's go over to the GUI, continuing to give you powerful new controls and enhancing existing controls. For very rich and high usability applications, you get internationalization for worldwide application sales and deployment. You get a new charting control, named toolbars, an enhanced grid control with a grid summary bar, grid data import, grid table window without column header bar. I will show you what that means in a minute. You get an enhanced tab control, tree enhancements, calendar including the week of the year, a sal function to minimize and maximize the ribbon bar, and you have a new flow direction attribute to support right to left languages like Arabic and Hebrew, for example. The charting control replaces quick graph, imports all quick graph properties, has a new property dialog. It provides all the quick graph methods. It works on Win32 and on .NET WPF, and it provides a new charting API for its new capabilities. So there's a number of 2D and 3D charts that you can use. You can use stack charts, multiple data sets per chart, overlay. Charts can be interactive. You can zoom in charts. You can start to display charts in zoomed mode and have users zoom out, zoom in, rotate them. You can save them as files, export to Excel and things like that. And of course, print. Has a new charting API, UFC chart, with 100 plus methods, including print and copy chart to file. Named Toolbars is this. This is like in the Team Developer IDE. Looking similar, these toolbars, you can have images on them and execute actions. And there's a new API called SAL Create Toolbar, which create a toolbar at runtime. The enhanced grid, you get a new grid summary bar. Every column can have a summary value, maximum, minimum, sum, average, count, and it can also have a custom value. And there's a number of functions to make that happen available for you. SAL Grid use summary row, SAL Grid set summary column, SAL Grid set summary column label, and also SAL Grid set summary column value actually. This one we kind of added in the last minute to TD 6.1, which is really at the bottom here. Oops. You see there's basically two grids. One grid that has the data in it. Below that is another grid that has aggregate values in it, and below that is the summary bar. So this is a grid that does not have a column header row like this one here. It doesn't have. You can switch that off now in Attribute Inspector, and that allows you to mimic the functionality of table windows using the grid. There's several more grid enhancements. You can do SAL Grid data import, imports Excel, XML, and CSV. You can set the row height of grids at runtime, and grid columns can be radio buttons that have a value of true and false. The tab basically has been enhanced to include multi-row tabs. In the Attribute Inspector, you set multi-row tabs to yes, and then you get the tabs in multiple rows instead of needing to scroll through them through a number of tabs on top of the control. SAL Tab Add Page X adds icon and tooltip to dynamically created tabs. And SAL Tab Get Name retrieves tab name based on provided tab index. The tree has been enhanced with several functions and a new message. SAM context menu traps right mouse click on the tree control, so you can show a object menu on the position of the mouse. You get several new APIs like SAL Tree Reset, resets the tree control to empty or design time items. SAL Tree Item from Point returns the tree age item of a given position. Date Picker, basically week number support here. You get the week number to show at the left if you want that. You switch that on in Attribute Inspector. Week number computation based on the locale of the machine, and that might be different in Europe and the United States, for example, because sometime, I think in the United States, a week starts with Sunday or the other way around. In Europe and Monday. So let's have a quick look at the Team Developer 6.0 GUI features. This one is the first one I want to show you, which is one of the screenshots actually that I showed you, which is two grids here. You have child grid, grid 1. You have this other one below here. Height column bar yes at the bottom, and summary bar yes. And there's some processing behind that, of course. Fill grid 1, fill grid 2 are functions that are filling the grid with data and stuff like that. But looking at that, you see that one can now create nicely table window split functionality using the grid window. It's a little bit of program effort, but you can create the same look and feel now as you did with previous versions of the table window, really. So then have a look at the charting control. Just a quick look. The sample application that you get with Team Developer 6.1 is actually this one, and that allows you to test really all the UFG chart things, functions that you get, and you can choose from different chart types. You can add 2. In this example, you can add 2. You can number more actually if you want. Where's line 3D here? Configure chart, enable animation, then it will be built up slowly, kind of animated type. See. Then you have, if you want, you have mouse access to scroll in, scroll out. You have the values in there. You can set a chart title. You can set the font, background colors, everything you can imagine. So there's a whole set of new things you can do with the new chart control. And the nice thing, it loads your existing quick charts, and it also offers a lot more that you can leverage in the future for your charting needs. And the last little demonstration I want to show you is the named toolbars. So named toolbars. In global decorations, you now have a thing called named toolbars, and you see those toolbars have a text title, they have a picture, and they have actions. And they also have an enabled when variable, Boolean variable that you can provide, so to show a difference when they are enabled or disabled. And at runtime, you can create these toolbars. So I'm still using a, well, start create window. You can also start create toolbar now. And you see you're getting these new toolbars. I was a bit lazy and just created 3 because I didn't want to go search all these different images. But here's how those work and how those look. Actually quite nice. Okay. That was a quick introduction into Team Developer 6.1, the fun and speed of the new IDE, the power of the new .NET interoperability with .NET Web Services, providing and consuming, and more actually, and the beauty and functionality of the existing and enhanced controls in 6.1. Now let's go to questions and answers. Let me open the question tool and the chat tool. There's a question. It says execute local WPF client exe. Does it mean you do need to install an exe on the local machine? I think that is related to DBPipe, right? For DBPipe and local .NET desktop apps, yes, you need to install an exe on the machine. You do not need to install the exe on the machine when you run WPF browser applications. Then this application will be downloaded and executed from a sandbox environment inside the browser, and you don't need to install anything. So WPF browser, no install. WPF desktop, yes, install. I hope that answers that question. Any more questions? Well, if there isn't anything else, thank you very much for joining. Oh, here, info about XAML properties. XAML properties. So you can have XAML brushes as properties of every object, really. Let me just open TD here again. So let me open an application with the weather web service. And if you go onto the window there, and then on properties, now all the WebEx windows come in my way. You can have XAML style here, which is the complete XAML style definition, or a background brush or foreground brush. Since I didn't define any here, those are not shown, but I can go into the outline and define those as global resources. Add next brush. If you add a brush there, then you can start defining those. See, there's brush. Where was that? Brush editor. And you know, you can have gradient stops in certain areas that have colors, and then add another gradient stop where it's blue in there. So, and if you do that, then you can give that a name, brush, my brush. And now, if you go into the layout and you select the data field, say background brush, then my brush shows up. And at runtime, it will show actually that brush definition that I did. Difficult to use WPF controls because there's no documentation. Well, you need to get the documentation of the WPF control itself, and that can be, of course, difficult. For Microsoft WPF controls, it's quite easy because those are nicely documented in MSDN. But you always need documentation to find out what methods, properties, and events a WPF control supports. And then you can use the TD WPF messages and everything to work with that WPF control. Any examples for generic WPF control? Yeah, let me open an example here. Need to remember how I call that. WPF browser, I think. That's a Microsoft WPF control. So let's look here. There's a WPF custom control in Attribute Inspector. You have XAML, and this XAML is very easy because it's a Microsoft WPF control. You don't need to specify any namespace, DLL name, and things like that. You just name the control, which in this case is web browser, and provide any properties you have for that control. So this WPF control should really open a browser window that opens blog.unify.com when it is launched. And this little XAML snippet was everything you needed to actually do this. And see, it opens the blog page. And this application actually also does something nice. Every time you do something, it shows all the events that are being fired. So you create a little application, or you can and kind of debug that and see what messages it fires. But it can be tricky for controls that are not Microsoft, where you have to provide all the namespace and all that. You just need to get used to the syntax that is being used there to get it working right. All right. If there aren't any more questions, thank you very much for joining this webinar. All the samples are actually listed on the TD community website, so you can download those and others are loaded in the samples of Team Developer 6.1 itself. Oh, here's another question. Can the old C quick graph functions calls be used, or must they all be reprogrammed using the new chart control methods? That's a very good question. You do not need to reprogram. The new charting control supports the old quick graph APIs plus the new ones. So you can just go ahead, use the old stuff, and if you want to extend it with new things, use the new one. Which is quite nice, I think. All right. Well, thank you again very much. I hope you enjoy working with TD6.1 as much as I do. And talk to you very soon again. Goodbye.